It's one of the biggest frustrations in cancer research. We see these incredible promising results for a new drug in the lab, a real breakthrough, and then it just doesn't work in actual patients. It's a huge problem. So today we're going to dive into exactly why this happens and look at a new AI that might just be the solution we've been waiting for, a way to completely change the game for cancer treatment.
Okay, so the whole issue really boils down to this. We're dealing with two completely different worlds. Think about it. In the lab, it's like a perfectly controlled science experiment. We have these uniform, identical cells. Let's call them virtual cells. Everything's simple, predictable. You add a drug, you get a clear response. But a real patient, that's not a sterile petri dish. A tumor inside a person is, well, it's chaos. It's a complex, messy, totally unique ecosystem of different cells all interacting with each other. It's anything but predictable.
And that leads us to the billion-dollar question, right? This is the question that has haunted researchers for decades. Why do these amazing lab results so often fall flat when they get to people? Where is the disconnect? What are we missing?
All right, let's get into it. The lab versus the patient. The core of the problem has a name, and it's what researchers call the cell-to-patient gap. This gap is the critical barrier we need to overcome.
So what exactly is this cell-to-patient gap? Well, it's the massive difference between how cancer acts in a simple lab dish versus how it acts inside a living, breathing human body. A tumor in a person isn't just a flat layer of cells. It's a whole three-dimensional structure, constantly talking to immune cells, blood vessels, you name it. It's a bustling city of biological activity. Our lab cultures, they're missing, well, pretty much all of that.
Okay, this next part is a really powerful way to think about this problem. The researchers who built the AI we're going to talk about, they came up with a great analogy. It's basically a biological language barrier.
I love this quote because it makes everything so clear. Imagine each drug is a topic for discussion. In the lab, all the cell lines speak the exact same simple language. So you bring up the topic, the drug, and they all understand it perfectly and react the same way. But patient tumors, they're like different ethnic groups, each speaking its own unique, complex dialect. So when you bring up that same topic, that same drug, it gets interpreted in a dozen different ways, leading to all sorts of different responses. It's like the message is getting lost in translation. So, if the problem is a language barrier, what's the solution? A universal translator, of course. And that's exactly what these scientists built. Let's meet our AI translator. It's called Contextual Manifold Disentanglement, or CMD for short. Now that sounds complicated, but just think of a manifold as a really complex data map. This AI is basically an expert map reader that can look at the map from the lab and the totally different map from the patient and find a common language between them.
So how does this AI actually do its job? You can break it down into three simple steps. First, it listens in on both worlds. It just ingests a ton of genetic data, the language, from both the simple lab cells and the complex patient tumors. Then, and this is the really clever part, it finds the core message. The AI is smart enough to separate the drug's real effect from all the background noise of the patient's unique biological dialect. And finally, once it has that core message, it creates that universal language. It lines up the two worlds so we can finally accurately apply what we learn in the lab to a real patient.
Okay, this all sounds great in theory, but does it actually work? That's the only thing that matters, right? So, the researchers put their AI translator to the test to see if it could really deliver on its promise.
And the results are pretty stunning. First up, CMD was, on average, 17.7% better at predicting how a patient would respond to a drug, compared to the best methods we have today. Now, 17.7% might not sound like a huge number, but in the world of precision medicine, that is a massive leap forward. It's a huge deal.
And check this out. It also showed a fivefold, that's 5x, gain in figuring out which drugs are actually worth pursuing for specific cancers. Just think about what that means. It helps researchers avoid wasting time and money on dead ends and instead focus on the drugs that have a real shot at working. This could literally slash the time it takes to get new treatments to patients.
Okay, but numbers on a screen are one thing. The real acid test, the ultimate proof, is this. Do these AI predictions actually work on living tissue taken from a real patient? Let's find out.
And this, for me, is the most exciting part. The team took tissue from colorectal cancer patients and grew mini tumors in the lab. These are called organoids, and they're like a personalized avatar of the patient's actual cancer. Then they did a head-to-head competition. The drugs CMD picked versus the standard drugs doctors would normally use. And the result? It wasn't even close. The drugs selected by the AI were way more effective at killing the cancer cells. Just look at that difference. That's incredible.
But this AI isn't just about predicting which drugs will work. It can also act like a detective, uncovering hidden secrets about why they work or why they don't.
So let's look at a real medical mystery. We've got two drugs, sorafenib and dasatinib. On paper, they're practically twins. They're the same class of drug, they target the same pathways in the cell. You would bet money that they'd work pretty much the same. But in the real world, in actual patients, not at all. Their results can be completely different.
So, what's going on here? What's the hidden difference that nobody could see?
Well, the AI detective, CMD, cracked the case. It found the secret, and it's a tiny protein called ABCG2. You can think of this protein as a bouncer at a nightclub door. When the drug sorafenib tries to get into the cancer cell, this bouncer recognizes it and literally kicks it right back out. But for some reason, the other drug, dasatinib, can sneak right past the bouncer and get inside to do its job.
And here's the final piece of the puzzle, the key insight that makes this so useful. CMD's analysis showed that in colorectal cancer tumors, there are very low levels of this bouncer protein. So the bouncer is basically off-duty. This explains why a drug like sorafenib, which would normally get kicked out, can actually be effective in this specific type of cancer. It's this kind of deep contextual understanding that really bridges that cell-to-patient gap.
So when you put all of this together, the better predictions, the proof on real patient tissue, the ability to solve medical mysteries, it's all pointing to something huge. A massive shift in how we approach medicine, the dawn of the virtual patient.
Yeah, that's right. We're moving away from those simple virtual cells we started with. This kind of AI technology is the bedrock for creating true virtual patients. Think of it like a perfect digital twin of a person's individual cancer, a computer model so accurate it can predict exactly how their specific tumor will react to hundreds, even thousands of different drugs. And the future this opens up is just mind-blowing. We're talking about AI models that pull in everything, your genetics, your scans, your medical history, to build your virtual twin. We could have other AIs designing brand new drugs specifically for your virtual patient. We could have this super fast loop where the AI makes a prediction and we test it on a MIDI tumor in the lab almost instantly. I mean, imagine this. Before a doctor ever gives you a single pill, they could run a virtual clinical trial with hundreds of drugs on your digital twin to find the absolute perfect one for you. That's the future we're heading towards.
So I'll leave you with this to think about. As these virtual patients become a reality, how is medicine going to change when we can know the right drug for you before you ever take the first dose? The question isn't if we can find the right drug anymore. It's how fast we can find the perfect one for every single person. And that future, well, it's getting closer every single day.